In this mini-series, I'm going to present what I think are the top 10 physical performance tests for longevity. My company offers this test as a service for individuals as well as corporates. And if you'd like to get yourself tested, feel free to contact me through the links in the description below. Let's get into it. The first test on the list is VO2 max test. In simple terms, V stands for volume, O2 stands for oxygen, and max stands for maximum. VO2 max therefore means how much oxygen your body can utilize. To do the test, you have to pick an activity and do it up to exhaustion. This can be running on a treadmill, cycling on a bike, swimming, rowing, etc. You start off on an easy effort and gradually increase the intensity up to you cannot continue further. To get your VO2 max result, you can use equipment like the one that my team is using to measure your gas exchange, or you can use one that purely relies on algorithm, like your smartwatch or the one offered by ALLSET. That being said, some methods are more accurate than others. For example, smartwatches give you a result between 1% and more than 10% in accuracy. So although it can be useful for estimation, researchers recommend that you should not use them for sports and health applications. Another thing is that while you can do the test outdoors, most of us will want to compare the results from test to test to check for progress. And hence, the test is usually conducted indoors to keep the test environment consistent and to reduce the margin of error during comparison. The VO2 max test sits at the top of my list for three main reasons. Firstly, it's an indicator of cardiovascular, metabolic, and musculoskeletal health all rolled into one. To put it simply, to improve your VO2 max, your heart, blood, and blood vessels need to work together to supply more oxygen to your body. They are parts of your cardiovascular system, and improving the system reduces your risk of heart disease, stroke, and other cardiovascular conditions. A higher VO2 max also suggests that you're able to use energy more efficiently, in particular, to process oxygen. This efficiency helps you reduce the risk of metabolic diseases like obesity and diabetes, all of which can reduce life expectancy. This is aligned to what researchers found that your VO2 max is positively associated with resting metabolic rate, better composition profile, improved chance of partial clinical remission for type 1 diabetes, etc. Another thing I mentioned was musculoskeletal health. That simply means how well your bones, muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments, and other connective tissues are functioning. The VO2 max test is a strenuous test where you need a certain amount of physical function to do well, and therefore it also gives you an indication of immobility and frailty later in life. More data backing up this point later. The second reason I rank VO2 max at the top of my list is because the only way to get a better result is through consistent training over time. A high VO2 max will likely mean you have been training your cardiovascular system for many years. That in turn has led to denser levels of mitochondria in your muscles, and therefore a greater volume of oxygen is converted into energy. This makes VO2 max a useful metric giving you an accurate picture of your health and longevity. And for people like me who administers the test, it also gives us an indication of how much aerobic capabilities we are working with, beyond just the run timings alone, for example. From there, I can then give you better exercise and health recommendations. Speaking of which, the last reason I've placed this test at the top is because of actionable takeaways. Specifically, they are percentiles shared by researchers based on gender as well as age. So you can see if VO2 max is something you should prioritize, or you should be working on something that we're going to test further down this list. For example, we can also get percentiles for strength and power, the next two tests that I'm going to be talking about. And if your VO2 max percentile is in the top 5% but your strength percentile is below average, for example, then you should probably prioritize strength for greater health gains. Coming back to VO2 max, the percentiles also give you a better understanding of your longevity. For instance, researchers have also found that there is 50% reduction in mortality over your next decade if you go from the last quartile to the third quartile. If you then go from the last quartile to the second quartile, there's about a 60% or 70% reduction in mortality. To be exact, I'm referring to your chance of death by cancer, metabolic disease, cardiovascular disease, etc. It remains to be understood in literature exactly how much you can improve your VO2 max by, because it relies on many factors, but multiple studies have shown that it is possible to improve your VO2 max with different types of training. More about that in a separate video. The point here is that it is worth working on your VO2 max. Coming back to the earlier chart, if you compare the last quartile to the top 5 percentile, that's a 5 times difference in mortality over a decade. To put things in comparison, here's the chart on other conditions' correlation with mortality from the same research paper. The way to read this is, if you smoke, you have 41% increase in mortality over the next decade. If you have coronary artery disease, 29%, diabetes, 40%, etc. The biggest driver of mortality in this paper is end-stage renal disease, and that's the same difference between the last quartile as compared to the second quartile in cardiorespiratory fitness. When you comprehend these statistics, it's pretty obvious that VO2 max is a powerful way to measure as well as to improve your health. The good news is marginal gains also help. As shown in a separate study, 1 unit higher in VO2 max was associated with a 9% relative risk reduction of all-cause mortality for men aged 42 to 60 years. And the way I personally approach VO2 max improvements is likewise, step by step. I now move on to another way you can interpret your VO2 max percentile, which is an estimation of your mobility as you age. This is a chart done by Dr. Jason Gifford. He pulled data from the American College of Sports Medicine Testing and Prescription Guidelines book. On one side, you have the VO2 max for age based on a table similar to the one we showed earlier. And on the other side, you have VO2 max for different exercises. These estimations are derived from prediction equations for different activities listed in the guidebook. Take for example, you're of average fitness in your 20s. If you don't maintain that, you might face trouble walking at your regular pace up a slight incline in your 60s. Using this chart hence enables you to make a more informed decision on whether to take action on your health or not. I'll put the charts as well as their references in the show notes, link to that in the description. Coming back to VO2 max testing, the other way it is useful is because you can derive training heart rate zones from the results. In my opinion, that's the most useful takeaway because you can use these heart rate zones derived to make your training more efficient and improve your VO2 max. Once again, some testing methods are more used than others. Not all tests gives you your training heart rate zones. Some tests gives you your training heart rate zones, but they are not totally applicable in your training. It depends on test protocol and equipment, so check with your tester. And I'll cover all these details in a separate video in the future as well. If you're interested, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'll just end off with an important message that although VO2 max can be seen as the greatest predictor of longevity, it is not the be-all-end-all test for your health. In fact, you can still have health conditions even though you might have a decent VO2 max, and that's why I've partnered with Vital Health, a contrast doctor service dedicated to optimizing your health span. They've kindly agreed to sponsor this video, and before that, I've already been a user of their service for a few months, and it's through their results that I realized I needed to make changes to my health routine. One of the subsequent changes I made was to pick up a Real Life Essential Pack. I found it really useful as well, and hence I've got you a discount for Vital as well as a Real Life if you'd like to check it out for yourself. You can find my affiliate links in the description of this video. If not, that's all for now. I'll go through the next test on this list, Frank, in another video, and till next time, take care.